Good evening. Welcome in TNC Radio.live. This is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Corman. I'm Tom Kelly. We'll be with you for the next hour talking about all sorts of things that make you your brain a little smarter and a little healthier. And but first, we've got some more important details to talk about.
We do.
We do.
Oh.
Super Bowl.
Okay. Yes.
Are you ready for some football?
I am looking forward to this game, even though my teams are not in it.
Well, I'm going to ask you to help make some bets here. All right? So these are very important bets. First of all, who will win the coin toss? Kansas City or Philadelphia?
Kansas City will win the coin toss, and they will defer.
All right. So
Philly's going to get the ball first.
The national anthem in the last 15 Super Bowls has been gone over 2 minutes and 5 seconds 8 times and under 2 minutes and 5 seconds 7 times. Will the national anthem be over or under 2 minutes and 5 seconds? It's being sung this year by Chris Stapleton, who will probably use his acoustic guitar. He's a country singer, if you're familiar with him.
Oh, then we got to go over.
Okay.
The intro itself will be a minute and a half.
It with Chris Stapleton, it actually could be.
I've never heard the over-under on the national anthem.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Struck me as funny, but okay. What else you got?
Will any scoring drive take less time than it takes to sing the national anthem?
Yes, Kansas City will have one of those.
All right. So, yes on that. Let's see. Next question. Whose commercial will get to play first after the kickoff? After the kickoff. Will it be Doritos or M&M?
I'll go with M&M's.
Okay. Will any player score an octopus?
Octopus meaning 8 points?
Yes. All together. Does the touchdown and the 2-point conversion.
Well, I see Philadelphia's kicker getting 2 field goals and 2 extra points.
No. An octopus is you do on the same back-to-back, you score the touchdown, and then you score the 2 points.
No. Going with no on that.
Okay, going with no. I knew you were going to say something about the kicker. I should have bet on that.
Okay.
Here's a good one. This is a good one. I've never heard this one before, but it's very interesting. Travis Kelce, Dallas Goedert, and Patrick Mahomes all have jerseys under 12. The number 12. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Isaiah Pacheco, and Devontae Smith all have jerseys under 12. The point spread on this one is 11.5. 11.5 of the jersey number that will score the first touchdown.
You lost me on that. I'm not sure what you're asking. 11.5 is what?
The jersey number of the person who scores the first touchdown.
Well, 11.5, of course, is not a real number.
Right. So you take the over or the under.
Oh, okay. We're still doing over-under.
Over-under for the jersey number of the person who scores the first touchdown.
Well, I'm going over because I think it'll either be Pacheco, Mahomes, or Kelce who scores the first touchdown. They're all over.
Pacheco is. Holmes and Kelsey are both under.
Wait, Kelsey's 87, right? And Mahomes is 15.
Well, I'm just telling you what this says. I think you're right.
What I am is confused.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, Mahomes is number 15 and Kelsey's 87.
What is Pacheco's?
Yeah, I want to say 10, but I don't know.
Yeah, okay, so it would be, so Hurts, Brown, Pacheco, and Smith would all be under. So yeah, okay, they just wrote under twice here, so that's what's confusing.
Okay.
So, all right, so you're taking the over on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know anything about the singer. Do you? They want to ask questions about it. I don't know anything. So the color of the Gatorade shower at the end. Think about
we gotta go lemon lime.
Lemon lime. I just want to point out to you that when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last time, the Gatorade was orange.
Oh. Okay, I just used my phone for the first time, and I saw Isaiah Pacheco is number 10. I was right about that. But anyway, that's all I'm going to use my phone for. I'm sticking with lemon lime. What do I know about the Gatorade shower? But I can't believe they have all of these stats to bet on. But
you bet. I'm leaving a bunch of stuff out. Like, what color is Rihanna's first outfit? Yeah, we're not even going there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's see.
Gold.
I skipped over that one. Let's see. All right, it's the game's over. They bring up the MVP, and he does a speech. Who will he thank first? His teammates, God, the city, I just want to thank the city of Philadelphia for me, or his family, his coach, or his owner?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I'm going to say is that the MVP, Mr. Patrick Mahomes, is going to thank God first.
Okay. All right. Those are, now we're going to do the same predictions on the Wednesday night show and for Clutch Time Sports. We might also do the same predictions on an earlier show on Wednesday night. So we'll get this, we'll get several people from the radio station who will be making similar predictions, and we'll see how everybody stacks out at the end. I think you got some strong answers here.
We shall see. One never knows. That's why they play the game.
So, but at the end of the day, let me ask you the non-prop bet. Who wins the game and what's the final score?
Kansas City is going to win 31-24.
Wow. Kansas City by a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So, Philadelphia's defense doesn't scare you at all, huh?
It scares me, but I'm not Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
I'm a lot older than he is. Actually, I think Andy Reid is like Bill Belichick Jr. I think he is amazing. There was a question this week that said, does Kansas City qualify as a dynasty yet? And, it was one of those questions for everyone to throw their opinion out. Of course, there's no right answer. But in my mind, they need to win this Super Bowl to qualify. And I think they will. And I think he's had a fabulous record with Kansas City. And Mahomes has had a fabulous record since being the starting quarterback. And I don't think Philadelphia is going to stop them.
What do you know about trains? Whether you're an expert or just want to learn something.
Yeah, that's my bet. What do you think?
Is Kansas City a dynasty? I think you got to say yes after this game, whether they win or lose, that they made it to another Super Bowl. I mean, it's pretty doggone close.
Yeah. But winning it, I think, guarantees that.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. That was the other thing I was going to say is, you know what a meme is?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that there ought to be a meme where it's the coach from Karate Kid looking at one of the defensive players from Philadelphia saying, "Sweep the leg."
That's good.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, I think we covered a lot of it there, didn't we? So I guess we'll take a break and come back and serve it up. Do our usual Monday night routine.
That sounds good.
All right. We'll be right back. You're listening to TNC Radio.live. Stay tuned.
This blog is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Truckers Against Trafficking can help fight modern-day slavery. Human trafficking is a real and frightening issue in the United States. It's a crime that forcefully exploits women, men, and children. Human trafficking involves transporting a person into a situation of exploitation, which can include forced labor, marriage, or prostitution. The term exploitation in this sense is commonly referred to as modern slavery. At this time, it's estimated that there are 20 to 40 million human trafficking victims internationally. According to the ACLU, the United States Department of State estimates that 14 to 17,000 people are trafficked into the United States each year. Truckers Against Trafficking exists to educate, equip, empower, and mobilize members of the trucking, bus, and energy industries to combat human trafficking. Truckers Against Trafficking goals: saturate trucking and related industries with TAT materials. Partner with law enforcement and government agencies to facilitate the investigation of human trafficking. Marshal the resources of partners to combat this crime. The Truckers Network proudly sponsors Truckers Against Trafficking and their efforts to fight against this heinous crime that's affecting hundreds of thousands of Americans each year. How truckers can help. Training video. Watch Truckers Against Trafficking's free training video and take the short quiz through their online portal. This will register you as an official TAT-trained, TAT-certified driver. Know the red flags. Download the Truckers Against Trafficking app and request a wallet card and window decal at tat.truckers@gmail.com. Share. Share Truckers Against Trafficking's training with others in person and through social media. How trucking companies, schools can help. Training video. Share Truckers Against Trafficking's free training video with your drivers. Request a digital file of your video or physical DVD from tat.truckers@gmail.com. Know the red flags. Tell your drivers to download the Truckers Against Trafficking app and or request wallet cards for your drivers from tat.truckers@gmail.com. Register. Register your company as trained to reflect your impact in the fight against trafficking and encourage others to do the same. This info blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. HotShotSecret.net.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example, stiction. Found throughout the oil system, stiction is the sticky friction that negatively impacts your engine's ability to function at an optimal level. The molecular structure of oil is a hydrocarbon. The engine's extreme heat, tight tolerances, and high pressure cause the oil to break down and release hydrogen, leaving behind varnish, a carbon-based deposit. The varnish clings to the engine's moving parts, creating drag on the turbocharger, oil pump, and pistons. Symptoms of stiction include a rough idle and the loss of fuel economy and performance. Hotshot Secret Stiction Eliminator delivers a 98% clean rating in third-party scrub tests. Its synthetic cleaner plus nano lubricant contains no harmful solvents and is formulated to be left in the engine to safely dissolve stiction for thousands of miles. It works as you drive.
Stiction Eliminator is available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
Welcome back, TNC Radio.live. Happy to be with you on a Monday night. This is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. And we will jump right in. So tell us where we are, Dr. Cortman.
You are in Houston, and I am in Florida. But even more specifically, we were working on completing the 10 truths of the social black belt. And I feel like we have completed 90% of them, which for those of you mathematically challenged listeners, that's 9 of the 10 truths. So today we will begin with the 10th truth, chapter 10 in the book, which essentially is about healing. And what I want everyone to understand at the beginning of the 10th truth is that healing is not what you've heard about before. In fact, the truth says time doesn't heal all pain. We heal ourselves by learning to let go. And you have heard, as I have, time heals all wounds. That is something that even people in my field are mistakenly prone to say. And it's very sad because time just passes. It's true that people can heal over time and often do, but it's not time that does the healing. Because if that were the case, there'd be many people who would be feeling a lot better than they are after going to combat in Vietnam or in any of the other subsequent battles and wars that soldiers have participated in, Afghanistan and such. There are a lot of soldiers who take their lives because they can't heal emotionally. There are many others who don't take their lives, but they are overwhelmed by the horrors, the atrocities, by unfinished pain from the past.
22 per day, by the way. 22 per day.
22. That's just...
That's the average. We work with another group called Tears of the 22, who are trying to get that number to come down. But, I mean, it's a stunning number.
It's a stunning number, and it's so sad because I believe that with the best of training and treatment, that number can come way down. I mean, I have had a career that really features treating people with unfinished trauma and grief. And, my fantasy when I work with someone is that they could stand in today and have their energy in the here and now looking forward. They could remember yesterday. They could champion anything and everything that's ever happened to them so that they have no regrets and no resentments. And it's a big challenge, especially if people have been raped, especially if people have been the product of incest or some kind of horror like that. But I want to share with you, Tom, that I have had people in so many different walks of life, including people who were horribly abused in devil worshipping cults. And these people, with enough work and enough effort to return to the scene of the crime, so to speak, to deal with the traumas head on, have learned to not only put them away, but to champion them, that they're well now. They're, many of them, because of so many traumas, were multiple personality patients, meaning they split into many in an effort to deal with the awful and the horrible. And as a result of working on all of that, we put the many back together into one, because they don't need to split anymore. We dealt with everything that ever happened to them. And I like soldiers to know that too. You have so many atrocities and stories, and one by one, we need to deal with every one of them. And, it's not just for those who are traumatized. I had a gentleman today who's 81 years old, and I've seen him. Today was only the third session, but I already love this guy. In our second session, he was talking about one of the things that was unfinished for him. He had a lot of guilt about some things he and his wife did in trying to help their son, a tough love approach that really kind of backfired years ago. And he said, he just felt so bad about that. And I said, you can talk to your son now. I mean, there's a relationship there, and you could say, I really apologize. At the time, what I was doing was, in my mind, designed to help you. And he said, I'm going to take that for homework. And I'm giving homework to an 81-year-old man. But you know what he told me today? He said, I called my son and I told him about how badly I felt. And he said, Dad, I have forgiven you for that. I understand now, because I'm a dad, how hard this thing is. And I know what you were trying to do was to help me. And I want you to let it go now, Dad, because I let it go. And I really appreciate you apologizing, but we're good. And he felt so good about that. And then you know what he did, Tom? He said, I got some other stuff. That's what people usually do. He has some feelings left over for both of his deceased parents. It's like, we got some homework to do. Obviously, he can't call his deceased parents, but he can write a letter to them, or he can do an imagery where he talks to them in his mind. It's still possible to do the healing work, because in this 10th truth, healing is active. It comes from letting go, and there's a number of steps that I like to teach people. There's already, what shall we say, an icon out there, a template for healing. People talk about the stages of grief. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's research on people who were dying, and it's called DABDA, which is 5 stages. And DABDA consists of, the D is denial, and the A is anger, and the B is bargaining, and the next D is depression, and the final A is acceptance. And it's a kind of a curious conclusion, because all of those stages are kind of passive, and then somehow you're supposed to just magically wake up in acceptance one day after you were just in depression. And the research has not borne that out. I mean, everyone knows about the stages of grief, but they're not really accurate. What I have in my theory, and that's based on, just treating so many people who have come in with traumas and are better today. It's also 5 steps, but mine is always beginning with remembering. Remembering means you got to be brave enough to take me to the pain. My theory is time doesn't heal, time passes, And if you want to heal something, you got to take me back to whatever is not finished. How do you know it's not finished? Because it still hurts, or it's still something you're blocking. You know, you've repressed it from your mind. You don't even know it because it was traumatic and horrible and you blocked it out. Or because you do everything you can to avoid talking about it or dealing with it. You sometimes have flashbacks or nightmares or intrusive recollections. Those are all symptoms of what they call post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, you keep going back to that which is unfinished. And you probably heard me say on the show, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I guess my question is, you said it still hurts. Okay, so life, we've determined in talking through the other 9 truths, things are going to hurt.
Yeah.
Right? And painful stuff comes up. There must be different levels of hurt then, because, I mean, there are things that they hurt, but I'm okay. And I'm okay that it hurts. Certain friends' deaths and, those kinds of things that, that you still hurt. I mean, healing and not hurting are not necessarily the same thing, are they?
Lots of times when there's healing, that which was unmanageable becomes manageable.
Right.
It's okay.
Right.
It may still bring me some sadness, the death of a son or something, but I can manage it. It's not dominating my life. It's not so devastating because I've been able to say goodbye to that son and put it in a perspective where it's okay for me to go on.
Right.
So let me give you an analogy from the physiologic. Let's say I am your primary care physician and you show up in the office and you go, my arm is killing me. I've got an open wound. And I say, let me see that. And you kind of pull up your sleeve. And I say, oh my God, Tom, that's horrible. That thing is so infected and it's never going to get better on its own. In fact, if you don't let me help you heal this thing, eventually I'm going to have to amputate the whole arm. It's just going to spread. It's going to get worse. And you say, I don't want that to happen, so do what you have to do. And I say, I want to warn you, this treatment is going to hurt, but then it's going to be fine. And you say, what do we have to do? And I say, it's not that big a deal. I'm just going to get a disinfectant, and I'm going to scrub this out. But when I scrub it, you're going to feel pain. So you go, whatever we have to do. And I get my stuff, and I go to touch your arm with the disinfectant, and you go, ow, what are you kidding? That really hurts. I go, I'm sorry. I know. But bite down on this and let me scrub it out. And I scrub it out and I clean it out. And much to your amazement, the healing begins, the scabs grow over, and it gets to a place where I can slap you on that spot like I'm doing now and it doesn't hurt. Whereas before, just touching it would bring, electric pain through your body. That's an analogy that I've seen happen time and again with people who are brave enough to go through the process of disinfecting the wound. We have to go back. I'm going to tell you some stories tonight, but the bottom line is, if it's not finished, we have, what was those Christmas ghosts? The ghost of the unfinished past. We have to deal with that ghost finally. And, I say often the mind is kind of like the stomach. Whatever has not been digested may repeat on you. The difference, of course, is that the mind, the stomach can only do 8, 9, 10 hours. And then whatever you've eaten, it's done. It's digested. But the mind can do an entire lifetime. 70, 80 years. The mind has the capacity to be stuck on something unfinished for decades. And sometimes I'll hit the jackpot by asking a simple question like, what is this about? Or where does this take you back to? You want to go for a break, or do I?
No, let's do the break, and we'll pick this back up. We're still working on remembering, and we'll talk about that when we come back in just a minute. TNCRadio.live. Stay tuned.
Do you feel like you're facing more than just the physical road ahead of you? Are you wondering if there's more to life? Join Ron Fraser, the host of Truckers Life Radio, every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, where he discusses the spiritual side of a driver's life. On the show, he goes through the spiritual and moral questions drivers face on a daily basis, helping you, the driver, as you travel life's highway.
Welcome back, TNCRadio.live. This is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. I'm Tom Kelly. We were talking a little Barry White off air, and you got to be impressed that I popped that song up that quick.
You got the magic right at your fingertips.
Yeah, what can I tell you?
You got it together, baby, didn't you?
Yeah, but you know we did, baby. We got it together all night long here. It feels good, doesn't it? Yeah, I think it does. So, all right. So we're rethinking the good old denial and anger. What is it? Denial, anger. Gosh, it just all went out.
Yeah, bargaining. The B is bargaining.
Negotiation. Yeah, I always call it.
And then depression and acceptance.
Yeah, depression, acceptance. So you've got a different way to think about it. But the problem I have with it is that yours spells revolver. So we're gonna have
good point.
Yeah, we're gonna have to work on that a little bit and come up with something that's a little more rememberable.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. All right. So we're talking about remembering.
So a prominent man in my county comes in one day, referred by his significant other. They've been together for several years now, and he's a man like, I want to say like late 40s, early 50s. And he just suddenly takes off and goes to live in the woods, as it were, for a couple of months. Just completely abandons his significant other. There's no, this isn't working out. She thought they were having a nice relationship, and he couldn't do it. He just left. And, he agreed to see me. This was at the beginning of the pandemic. And I was like, what is this? What are you feeling? And he said, she thinks I abandoned her, and I did, but that's exactly what I was feeling. And I said, okay, so you're feeling abandoned, and you can't get any closer to her, and you just bolted. And I said, what is this about? When did you feel like this before? And very impressively, I just had to ask a question like that, and I got at least 3 or 4 stories, one after another, that he had never talked about, never dealt with, and they all went back to the time when he was a kid. Like one of them, remember that movie Stand By Me with a bunch of 12-year-olds?
Oh, you betcha. Great
movie. It was a classic movie. Well, he had a kind of a few friends like that, and one of them, they were playing around with a train kind of thing, and the guy was like electrocuted on a fence or something right in front of him and just collapsed and died. And it was just like this trauma right there. Yeah. And, a couple of other stories like that, to see this guy just reduced to tears, but he had to deal with each one of these stories. And they were all connected to the fact that he couldn't feel safe, secure, grounded. He was getting too close, and it was a successful relationship, but that's what scared him. He couldn't do it. So he ran. And our job was to not only understand what happened, but put these things to rest so he never had to feel like that again, and therefore wouldn't run again. So that's been 3 years now, and he hasn't run since. I mean, I can't guarantee he won't, but we had to go back and face those things for him to finally feel better. And, I mentioned one of them happened at least when he was 12, and I don't remember all the details of all the stories, but, it was 40 years ago. It was 40 years ago, but it was unfinished. And I always tell people, you can keep burying these things, but you're going to have to pay later on. It's like, in my mind, I say it's like paying by credit card. The bill's going to come due later, and it's going to come with interest. You can block out memories. You can run from them. The guys in combat, I mentioned this on the show before, going into the hospital, asking a guy if he was ever in the military. He said, I was in Nam, and we don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. That was one sentence, and it was very clear what he was saying. You're not asking me anything about that because I'm not going there. Well, what I knew, and I only saw him the one time in the hospital consult, what I knew is he was stuck back there with some terrible things that had impacted his life in God knows how many ways. The stuff that is not finished will haunt you. The stuff that isn't finished will affect and infect your relationships with significant others and family. We now have research that says if you have trauma, you are more likely to become a substance abuser. We had a former president of the American Psychiatric Association say, let me put it to you this way. Smoking is to cancer as trauma is to addiction. We have research that says, wait a minute, maybe it's not so much about genetics. Maybe it's trauma that's the big ticket to alcoholism. We have research that says 2 out of 3 female alcoholics were sexually molested as girls. It's not just that some people have a greater tendency, a gene, if you will, to drink more. It's that when people have trauma and they don't deal with their trauma, it's there. And, I have story after story, and I'm proud of these stories. I'm proud of the people. I love the people because they were brave enough to share their world with me, Tom. And consistently, when they bravely take me there, like I was saying today with an 81-year-old man, to say, I'm going to go back and finish these things. I want him to finish every last thing that's in there. I ask people, empty your duffel bags. If there's any place where you're resentful, you ain't finished. If you still hate your parents, you ain't done. Mm-hmm. If you have resentment towards your ex-spouse, your former business partner, your adult child, you're not done. Because successful therapy not just digs that stuff up, but helps you to get to peace with it. The goal is not to hate people, because anybody I hate owns me. Anybody I hate has free rent in my head, and it's impossible to be at peace while being hateful. It's impossible to be a well person when I'm harboring resentment, when I'm wishing revenge against someone, I'm wishing someone would die. That's not peace. That's not consistent with well-being.
No, I totally get that, because that's one of those things that I have a lot of flaws, but I don't harbor grudges. I just don't. I got over that at some point in my life and learned how to, what your problem is your problem. Mm-hmm. I harbor curiosity sometimes.
Well, that's bad for cats.
Yeah. I mean, I do sometimes wonder, why did that person do that? That's a very odd thing, but I'm always comforted with, I probably wouldn't understand if they could explain it to me anyway. So why, I don't even spend a lot of time on that either.
Well, going back to our third truth, behavior is purposeful. And anything a person does more than once, they get something from, or they wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. I met a guy today who is sniffling. It's a tick. He's sniffling. He doesn't need to sniffle. He's been to several doctors who say, there's no post-nasal drip. Everything's clear. You don't need to sniffle. And so I'm talking to him for the first time about his sniffles. And I'm asking him, is there anything that happened that might have triggered this? And, I think we hit a jackpot. His mother died right at the same time he started doing this. And when we started talking about it, there were tears and upset, a 71-year-old man. And I don't know. I mean, did that start this whole thing? I don't know. Stay tuned. But my job is going to be to help him not only make peace with the death of his mother and whatever that might carry, he might be carrying about that, but then also to relieve this tick, to change this into whatever is more appropriate.
Got it.
Because he's been doing this now for a few years and he never did it before that. He didn't need to. It's not helping him physiologically. This is what he's doing.
All right. Well, I tell you what, let's take a break. Believe it or not, only one segment left. So we're going to go take our quick break here, come back, and wrap up where we are so far this week. You're listening to TNC Radio.live, Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. We'll be right back.
This blog is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Team driving with your spouse. Is it for you? Trucking's an exciting career with many opportunities. Although there are many benefits to being a truck driver, such as freedom on the open road and seeing new places, there's still negative sides like loneliness and boredom. Truck driving is also difficult for your marriage. Being away from your spouse for days or weeks at a time makes it challenging to have a happy and healthy marriage. Thankfully, truck drivers have the option to team drive with their spouse. Forming a husband and wife trucking team can be a great opportunity to spend time together and travel the United States while making good money. Now, like any other job, driving with your spouse has pros and cons. Stay with me to find out if team driving with your spouse is right for you. Now, the pros of team driving with your spouse. Faster delivery. Due to the FMCSA's hours of service regulations, truck drivers can only drive up to 11 hours a day. Any driving after 11 hours will result in a penalty and a bad safety score. Truckers on average will drive up to 55-60 miles an hour. After their 11-hour shift, that adds up to a little over 600 miles a day. When you drive with your spouse, you can drive more miles. While you're finishing your 11-hour shift, your spouse can be resting and getting ready for their shift. This allows drivers to complete more miles a day, which in return leads to a faster delivery. You won't feel lonely. Driving alone can lead to developing mental health issues later on in your trucking career. Studies show that depression and anxiety are some of the most common mental health issues in drivers today. Team driving with your spouse eliminates feeling lonely on the road. Having your spouse with you on the road gives you someone to talk to and enjoy your daily activities with. Make more money. A single truck driver makes less money per mile than one whose team drives. Why is that? Well, with two drivers, you're completing more miles each day, and therefore you reach your destination much quicker. Cons of team driving with your spouse. Difficulty getting along. They say that distance makes the heart grow fonder, and that's true. It can be difficult to get along with your spouse when you're in a small space for weeks at a time. You may find yourself wanting alone time to pursue your hobbies and interests. When you decide to team drive, you give up the possibility of any alone time in your truck. Lack of sleep. To make team driving work, Your spouse will have to rest while you complete your shift of driving. Sleeping in a truck cab, especially if your spouse is noisy, can be difficult. As a truck driver, it's essential to have a good night's rest before hitting the road. Getting the right amount of sleep is not only good for your overall health, but it also makes you more alert and cautious when driving. Harder to find trucking insurance. If you decide that team driving's for you and your spouse, you might have trouble finding a commercial truck insurance company that'll write your insurance. When you team drive, your truck never stops. Therefore, the truck is at risk for higher exposure to accidents. Your truck's also more liable to having maintenance issues, which can result in getting violations. Conclusion? Driving with your spouse has many pros and cons. Our advice to you is to take a look at the pros and cons and determine if this is the right career path for you and your spouse. Trucking with your spouse can lead to many great memories. This blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
I'm Shelley Johnson with Kathy Tuccaro. You can hear us Tuesdays on TNCRadio.live at 8 p.m. Eastern on Women Road Warriors. And don't miss Steve Summers' Overnight Drive right here on TNCRadio.live, weeknights midnight to 5 a.m. Eastern. Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Welcome back in TNC Radio.live. This is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. So, Dr. Cortman, we're talking tonight about remembering. I guess the question I want to ask, and you don't have enough time to give this a good answer right now, so we may have to come back and readdress this. Are there healthy and unhealthy ways of remembering?
Well, yeah. Some people take their painful memories out and wallow in them. And it's like crying yourself to sleep every night. It's like, well, wouldn't that be healing? And the answer to that, crying yourself to sleep after a death could be healing, but it could also be what a lot of people do, which is they just perpetuate their victimization. They continue to review their hatred, or they continue to review their trauma. They stay stuck in it. It shouldn't have happened. I hate that it happened. My life is ruined. I'm so bleeping angry. They stay stuck in victimization. They review it under the influence of their drug of choice. They are not in any way moving on. So, yeah, there are certainly ways to remember in an unhealthy way. The goal in remembering is to bring the trauma or the grief to the surface so that I can appropriately process it. And, the rest of the 5 stages that I have, it's remember, feel, express, release, and then we refrain. So, ultimately it's about, I'm bringing this up in an effort to work through it, to make peace with it, to put it somewhere where it doesn't own me anymore and my life is not horrible anymore, because I'm putting this in a better place. And, I ask people to do that via letter, but lots of times, my very favorite technique for those things is a thing called guided imagery, where, sometimes we talk to people in their minds who died. Maybe somebody molested them 50 years ago, but they have a need, to deal with this now. So they, imagine a scene where they're talking to this person, or they killed somebody accidentally in a car accident. We talk to this person and we make peace with what happened. And, I can tell you more specifically stories about these things, but it gets to a place, it's remember, and then we got to feel. We got to feel whatever the worst feeling is. And that's what people really try to avoid. They don't want to feel that sorrow or that fear, that abandonment. You know, I'm thinking of some people who told me about like the first day of school and the complete horror of feeling just totally abandoned. One man years ago, I'll never forget how he described it. He said he saw a movie where there was an astronaut who was hooked up by some kind of a cable or something, and there was a disconnect, and he was just floating into space by himself. And just you try to imagine that scene and the incredible horror and fear that you would have, and that's what he took with him right from the time he was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, whenever he first was brought into a classroom and left. You know, that's not everyone's experience, but it is some people's experience. The abandonment that they could feel, the horror, the terror. They didn't feel ready. They didn't understand what was happening. They felt like there was no recourse, no safety. But it happens when fathers walk out on a family. It happens sometimes when there's a divorce. It happens sometimes when somebody is suddenly killed in the family. I mean, there are times when the pain is just so severe, and people will go the rest of their lives trying to avoid feeling that. And my job is to help people finally face whatever their worst fear is so that they can work through it. It's feel, express, release. I mean, those are the 3 middle steps of the 5. And in my mind, healing requires these things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people have said to me, don't bring people back to their worst thing. Isn't it bad enough that they had to experience it once? Why would you re-traumatize them? And my response is, they're not finished with it. This is not about making them experience it indefinitely. This is about allowing them to champion it now,
right,
and put it away.
Right.
And so many times, Tom, I'll let them go back as an adult and revisit their child and take that little boy or girl and rock them and love them and say it's going to be okay.
Well, let's pick that up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's pick that up next week, because that's one I don't want to shortcut. So let's we'll stop right here. Come back and pick that up after, of course, we check out how you did on your prop bets with the Super Bowl. Wish you a great Super Bowl weekend, Dr. Chris and everybody else. We'll be back here at the same time, same channel next Monday for Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman.